My name is Andrew Thorburn, and I've worked for Sylvan for nearly 20 years now. I'm in my 20th year, and I'm on the technical side. So today we're going to look at Power BI and integrating it with Stratum, and some couple of options on how we can do this. So if I come through to start with into my Power BI desktop, one of the simplest methods of getting the information through is to directly connect into the cube. So what I've got here is a direct connection through. So if I start, what I'll do is I'll create a new one. Open up a new desktop. And get data from my direct connection through to the analysis services cube I have. So now you can see down at the side here I have a full list of categories, and as I scroll down, dimensions which are available to me. Now these have all come directly from Stratum. If I go across onto the server desktop and look at my measure groups, my categories in the connector, we'll see exactly the same list as is available here. So come back to the top. So actual sales, there we go, budget, cancelled orders, accounts payable, accruals, etc., etc. Scrolling down to the dimensions, if I look at my parent customer, for example, you'll see in addition to the usual customer values, customer parent, I've also got a whole series of pickup field information available to me, from description through to the other pickup fields. And the way that this has been done is with the dimensions coming down to customer parent. The descriptions have been created, had this create hierarchy tick applied to them. So they're being created as virtual dimensions within the cube. And the same with the address, the country, etc., etc., the ones we want to hold here. So the zip code, things like that, that I want to be able to view in the cube and through into state, through into Power BI. So now I have all the information available to me directly connecting through into the analysis services cubes, and I can just create a view as I require. So I can take my customer number, the description, for argument's sake, and I'll scroll through, back up to sales amounts and units. And then if I come down the list, under time, I have all the usual time dimensions available to me, including the rolling years, the base years, so I can do year to date, etc., directly out. In this case, I'm just going to take years and months. And the information to then straight through and in. One of the disadvantages of doing a direct connect through to analysis services is you can't then add measures and calculations through. It's a limitation currently with Power BI. But what I do have is I've got available to me up here under measures all of the calculated measures that I have defined already in Stratum. So again, if I come back to my server desktop, in my sales category, there is an average selling price defined, obviously, which is just sales amount divided by sales units. Which has been taken through into the connector anyway, under the calculated measures. Actual sales. Average selling price. And is available to me in the cube as an average selling price here. So again, I can tick that and bring that through into my data set. So that's a very simple method of connecting directly to analysis services into your Stratum cube and pulling the information into Power BI. Now this is clearly updating and connecting directly through, so as the Stratum database is updated and the cubes are rebuilt, so the information will be updated automatically through into Power BI. This is using the connections through the web interface there. So if I come through into Power BI, it's just using my gateway. I have a gateway connecting directly through to the server, and I'm using that then to live link back through once the information is published up onto the internet. Now you can also use Power BI to link back to Stratum. So from a very simple level on a dashboard, I can click and get it to fire up a window and open up directly into Stratum. I can backlink the other way, so I can have dashboards within as links defined within Stratum Viewer, and hook back through to Power BI. And I can take them more specifically. So again, if I've got one here, I've got a link coming through, which will then open up a Stratum session and run a particular report for me, an individual report directly. coming through, looking at it, another option you've got with this is if you have a report, you could tie a whole series of hyperlinks into the report, which then will go through and run particular Stratum inquiries for you directly in Viewer. Now, one of the options coming through on the latest release, or the next release on 6.9, is the ability to take the information, a large-scale table of information, for example, in a report like this, and schedule it through Broadcast Server to export out directly into Excel. And there is a new option available to you where you can select your Excel data as opposed to an Excel report, which optimizes the exportation of a large quantity of information. So in this case, I have $16,500 roughly rows to export. And I can still do it with the export to Excel function, but you could set this up with Broadcast services to export the whole table for you. Straight out. And this then generates an Excel table, which we can see down here. Obviously, from that point, you can then get the data as Excel and put it through into Power BI. So here we write down at day level amounts, margins, etc., etc. Load that through. And then as we're not direct connecting through to the Analysis Services cube, I've now got all my usual functionality you'd expect from Power BI, the ability to create new measures, columns. I can come in and edit the query and reformat the column headings. I can sort, filter, etc. All the standard functionality that you've come to expect. So I can now create calculated columns in here. I could create my average selling price, for example, manually.
Hi, Andrew. I've got a question for you.
Hi.
You can confirm that Sylvan Demo 2 box, that's a box that's publicly available on the internet?
No, they're not. They're, these ones are only available on our internal network. There is a version available on the internet through an SSL server, so you can put it out that way and connect through at that point.
Help us understand how you were connecting, because app.powerbi.com would be in the cloud, right? So help us understand how you were passing back and forth between something outside the firewall and something inside the firewall. How are you doing that? Okay,
that's done within Power BI itself. There is, if you have the Pro Pack where you're paying for it, there is a gateway option, and you can create a gateway then which goes directly onto your servers. And when you create that gateway, you have to give it a sign-in and a sign-in through to your network. So it's this gateway that's actually doing the connection through. So Microsoft effectively control all the security, the gateway in and out of the server at that point. There's a single access point where you've defined a user and a password.
Okay, so when you were in your Power BI dashboard and you clicked on a viewer report, the credential that it was running under was running under one that was defined here in the gateway versus running under you, the user?
Yes, it goes through the gateway and uses the profile you've got defined there to go back through to the Stratum environment on your network.
Okay.
Now, if you do it the opposite way, you can use the gateway still to access through and pull the information up. So if we went for the option of sending it out to Excel, again, you can create a gateway that would link through to the Excel database or the Excel tables and refresh those through automatically. But that's all controlled from within Power BI. So what you can't do at the minute is take the information from here. We can send it out via broadcast server to an Excel file at a predefined time every night, but you then need to go into Power BI and have a separate job created that will pull the data from the Excel files into Power BI itself.
Right.
For a company that doesn't currently use Power BI, what's the selling point for working with the data in Power BI as opposed to Viewer? What can Power BI do other than the obvious visualizations?
Well, the visualizations are the big thing. I guess once it's up there and you can visualize it like this, what you can't see here is I can also access the same information and visualize it and reformat it to be accessible on a phone or a tablet or whatever I want. You've got a different web address for it, but it's pretty. It depends on what kind of users you've got. It's very nice for creating visual reports like this where we've got a multitude of information. So we've got some key information there. I've got some nice dashboard dials down here. I've got some graphs through, etc., which I can then click on and go to my next level down and see the actual report information. And then it starts to come into play a bit more in that if I select an option there, it affects the whole screen of information. So whereas with Viewer, you've only got one report on the screen at a time, here you've got the ability to throw multiple reports on a screen. Coming through to here, I can pick on individual user representatives and time, etc. there. But it's really what kind of use the users are after. This is what we're finding is it's very useful for visualizations and looking at information at a particularly high level. But if you want to get down to the nitty-gritty, the numbers itself, Viewer is still probably a better option, because all of this is performing very fast because it's sucked the information, in this case, up into Power BI and it's running it from there. So it's running it on the cloud automatically.
Would this at some point replace the SharePoint dashboard functionality?
They're tying the two together, is what I would say. Microsoft seem to be merging the two so that SharePoint and Power BI cross-link a lot more, and in fact Excel as well. There's options within Excel now that you can export out to Power BI once you've created reports and things within Excel, or you can, if you have a particular Excel sheet which has got graphs, etc., you can import them directly into Power BI. So Microsoft is starting to tie the whole lot together, and they're using the same scripting language now behind the whole thing as well. Is anybody actually using Power BI with Stratum at the minute?
This is Bill Kale from Sage. We've tried to connect Power BI to our Stratum cube, and I think I missed the first few minutes. Have you shown how you made the connection? I think our version of SQL is too old for Power BI to connect to, but I wasn't familiar with what you just did technically with that gateway and that. Can you expand on that a little?
It does need, I think it's, I can't remember the version off the top of my head, but it does need a fairly new version of SQL for
yeah, I think that's our problem.
Gateway.
So with a newer version, though, of SQL, we should be able to connect directly, right, to the Stratum cube that's created?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then what you need to do within the cube itself is then within the dimensions come in for, say, customer class, enable the descriptions as hierarchies, and then you can see them within Power BI. Otherwise, you only see the values itself. So I would see the customer class figure, but not the description.
Okay, I gotcha. So they have to be hierarchies.
Yes. Currently within Power BI, otherwise it doesn't see what they call attributes.
Okay.
Within the cube. But by creating them as hierarchies, it does then see them.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, the one thing I would add is this is an ever-changing scene, particularly with Power BI. What's the kind of functionality, particularly over here, where we have the direct access and we don't have the ability to add measures and columns, etc. 2 months ago, that would have been true for access into SQL, but they've just released, with the last month or the month before, a new kind of combined access path where you can combine direct access into SQL with other sources of information, either direct access to other SQL sources or Excel or something like that. Now, that doesn't work with analysis services at the moment. If you do a direct connection to analysis services, you're still restricted and you can't add measures and columns, etc. But it's an ever-changing environment Microsoft seem to have. So it's possibly only a question of time before that's available and before you can just pick attributes, as you can in Excel at the moment. From direct connecting to the cubes. They're keeping the technology moving on, so who knows.